All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Solomon Denning. Welcome to another weekly workshop. This is the Cybersecurity Pocket Edition hosted by the Q Project. And today I'm going to be talking about Google Dorking, or in the more general sense, Google hacking, and how this is used in search engines to be able to search for stuff that you normally aren't able to find. So, the first thing that we can talk about is what a crawler is. What this web crawler is just a bot that is scouring the internet or searching through the internet, finding URLs that haven't been indexed yet, and then finding keywords and images that are in that file so that or that website so it can index them. Google, Bing, DuckDuckGo, these are major search engines that most people know about, and they have bots going out all the time looking throughout the whole internet trying to find websites that they can index so that when people search, they can find those. And if we look at this diagram at the top, this is how the crawler does its work. If you start in the top middle, you have the crawler and it goes out to the internet, and say it finds a website called mywebsite.com. It's going to go through that website and find all the outgoing URLs and all the incoming URLs, as well as images and keywords, basically just all the website content it can find. And then it's going to keyword them, such as apple, banana, and pear, and send them to the search engine database so that they can be stored. Then at the bottom here, you can see that when you or I or a user searches for pears, it's going to go to the search engine and ask for the keyword pears, and it's going to find all these websites that have been indexed with pear and give you the content for them. And that is the gist of how these crawlers do their work. And so if we take that a step further, we get to the search engine optimization. These crawlers don't want to spend a long time on every website trying to figure out where all the information's at so they can index it. They would rather have kind of a layout or a guide to where they need to go so they can just get the information, index it, and be done and go to the next website. And so these search engines like Google, they prioritize web pages that make crawlers' life easier. And that's in different senses. One of the main ones people don't think about is loading time. Search engine optimization depends a lot on how fast your website loads. And so some people will create a website that's meant for a computer, but not for a mobile app like an iPhone. And if your iPhone's loading a web page slowly, that will drop your optimization. And that basically means that instead of you being like the first one or two search results, you're going to be like the fifth or the 10th. And everybody knows that if you're on the second page of Google, no one's ever going to really find you because no one cares to scroll all the way down. And one of the caveats nowadays is that there's ad space that people pay for. And so this bypasses these optimizations for a little while you're paying for ads. You'll show up at the top how these red highlights are. If someone searched used cars in Bristol, this one down here that says Toyota of Bristol is the top SEO search result. So it's the most optimized. So it's showing up at the top. But then there's ads that are taking its place for the moment. And so the way that search engines or the way that websites can optimize themselves for these crawlers is by having a robot.txt file. So when a crawler goes to a website, the first thing it's going to see is the robot.txt file and read through it so that it can see what it's allowed and what it's not allowed to do. So you can see there's a few different arguments you can give it. One of them is user agent, one is allow, one's disallow, and one is sitemap. This top left one here with the asterisk is saying that any user agent is allowed. So Google bots, Bing bots, DuckDuckGo bots, they can all come here and start indexing the files on whatever website it is that it is at right now. If you look at allow and it's blank with just a dash or a slash, that means that it can index any single file or image it finds inside that website, which is not too good to have. You want to disallow certain websites. So you can see from this super secret directory, that would be something that you don't want the crawler seeing. Like, and an example of this is like an admin page or an employee login page that is like not meant for the general world to see. If you don't disallow those directories or those files, the crawler is going to index them, and then whenever someone searches on Google, they will find that web page, and you might not want people doing that. Down here at the left, you can see that the user agents are being allowed and disallowed. So you can see that Google's bot has everything allowed, so it can index the whole website. And then MSN bot is disallowed from indexing anything. So that means the crawler is going to read that, and then it's going to have to leave if it was from MSN. And the last part of this whole thing is the sitemap. Sitemap is the most important because this is what allows your website to be optimized. You're sending it directly to your XML page, and this is basically just a simply formatted page that tells you where every single link is inside your website. So you want to give the crawler a sitemap so that it can go there and then have everything it needs to index right away without having to find all of it on its own. And so taking this a step further from the Robot.txt, there's sometimes people that don't disallow pages, or even if it's not stuff that you don't really care about, there's also easier ways to find these hidden files inside web pages. And that is what Google dorking or hacking is. There's terms that you can use in Google to break down your search results so that you're not just searching a giant query of data. Some of the main ones, one of them is file type. So if in the search result, when you're searching and you do file type and you give it a file type such as PDF, it's only going to return to you PDFs. And so you could see from this page here, an example I'll show in a minute is you can make it to where you want the file type of .xml, and then so you can find a website's sitemaps right away from Google's search engine. Another useful one is this last one, the in title. This is, if you include this in a search result, any word that appears after in title has to show up in the website that it's going to show you on Google. Otherwise, it won't show up as a search result. Because we all know sometimes you say you look up dog on Google, you're going to get a bunch of websites that don't necessarily have dog, but they might have something else related to a dog. So if you do in title dog, it has to be a website that has dog in the title. And so this is going to be something that's easy for us all to try out together since everyone can access Google. So if you guys would want to mess around with this at the same time, you guys can come to Google where I'm at. Can you guys still hear me? My thing's given some issues.
Yeah, we can.
All right. Okay, so I'm going to go to here real quick. This is if you go to Wikipedia's Google hacking, this will give you all the operators you can use. You can see that a lot of these are useful. And as students, these are also useful. I would recommend you look at these because they can help you find things that you're looking for. So in title is search, it has to be in the page title. In URL, it has to be in the URL. Site, the site one's good because you can search specific sites only. If you put site and then you put like the name of a website, it will only show those that include that.
We can see your screen.
Again, dang. I think I know what's going on. Let me see. I think when I'm sharing it, it's not sharing my desktop, it's sharing specific files, and so it's messing it up. But can you see this now?
Yeah.
Okay, so on Wikipedia's page, these are all the different operators you can use in Google. and I'm going to show you guys kind of how these work. So say we want to search for UC Merced, everything inside UC Merced that is a .xml file. We can go entitle UC Merced, and then we can say file type .xml. And you'll see that sometimes it will do this thing, but let me fix that. Did you mean? It's going to show the main web page just because that is so, but this might be a bad example because the university doesn't really work well for that. So let me do something else.
Why don't you just try file type.xml?
Yeah, I can do that as well. That will make it simpler. So if I do XML only, this is going to search Google for every file type that's a .xml.
I think there should be no space in between XML and file type. Yeah. Now take out the dot. Oh, no space.
Yeah, I think you include the .xml.
Right here. Yeah. You get a bunch of XML pages.
Okay, well, my backup was to do something else. So right here, if I do, what is it, site, apple.com, file type, or actually not that. You just do site apple.com, and then anything you put after is what it searches inside that. And it's going to think I'm a robot now. Makes sense because I'm searching robot.txt. But if I go here, this was a good example I found. This is Apple's robot.txt file. And so whenever a crawler goes to Apple's website, this is what they find. And you can see there's a ton of disallows on here. They're saying that they allow every single user agent because they don't want different search engines to not be able to index them. But you can see that they're disallowing all these different things like shop, sign in, retail, and most of these aren't useful. But as if you could imagine, if you use Google's operators, you could find web pages that are vulnerable. So an example of this is if you look up in title index of, there's a lot of things that show up that kind of look like they shouldn't be on the internet for you to see. So like this, it like is showing like their index page for vanderbilt.edu. But I've already looked through this. There's not actually anything like that is gonna like be used for a hack on here. But you could imagine that if people find pages like this where it's like the indexing of a certain website and that user didn't know their website was indexed to show that on Google, you can do a lot of damage to websites by just using the power of these search engines to narrow your results down to find these vulnerabilities. And so with that, that is pretty much all I've had today. So thank you. That's the end of today's workshop, and we'll be back again next Thursday.
I think someone has a question. So you want to answer
Yeah.
that question?
Yeah, so the question's asking if this is for Google. Google has their own operators, and I believe that if you look up, like you could probably find Bing's as well. Like if I look up Bing hacking operators, they might have something that explains how you can do this in Bing. But yeah, it looks like Bing has some of the same ones. So it says they have one where it's file type, link, contains, in URL. So Bing, they have different keywords that they're using that you can use to narrow your search results down, but Google is one of the biggest search engine platforms, and so there's a lot that you can do just within Google, and then you can also do it with other search engines. And then I'll see if there's any more questions. So yeah, if you guys have any other questions, I can answer them real quick. And then Armand was asking if it exposes your file system. It using these operators to search the web pages, it only exposes the file systems that you've mistakenly not told it to not include. So if this isn't usually an issue in big corporations, but say you're just like a 1 or 2 man team and you're just trying to make like a nice website from scratch, you may forget to tell these crawlers to not include certain web pages or files in your system. And then you upload your file or you upload your website, and then those files are vulnerable for everyone on Google to find if they know how to find it. So you have to be careful. So yeah, if there's any other questions, I think I'll end the recording right here.